Have you ever noticed how the more you chase someone's attention, the further they seem to drift away? And yet, the moment you stop caring, they suddenly want you more than ever. That isn't luck. That isn't coincidence. That is the magnetic pull of detachment. Desire already fulfilled is not a concept of waiting, nor is it a matter of hoping for something to come at a future time. It is the radical shift in awareness where you take your desire out of the realm of possibility and plant it firmly in the soil of certainty. The moment you assume that you are already loved, already chosen, already desired, you stop living in the tension of lack and begin to radiate the vibration of having. This inner movement is subtle, but it is the secret that bends reality. Most people live as beggars in their own imagination, constantly reaching, yearning, and hoping. They think, if only they would notice me, if only they would love me, if only I could prove myself worthy. But that state of consciousness can only reproduce itself. It multiplies longing, multiplies distance, multiplies rejection. The outer world is a mirror, and when the mirror sees you waiting, it reflects back delay. When it sees you chasing, it reflects back running away. The transformation begins the instant you dare to occupy the position of the one who already has what they want. When you close your eyes and step into the scene where you are already adored, where the person you desire cannot take their eyes off you, where you are living as if the relationship is complete, you shift your identity. Instead of being the seeker, you become the one who has already found. Instead of waiting to be chosen, you walk as the chosen one. That shift in state is not merely imagination, it is creation. The universe has no choice but to echo back what you insist on within. If you can sustain the feeling of already being loved, your actions, words, and energy will naturally begin to align with that inner truth. You will move differently, speak differently, carry yourself with a quiet confidence that requires no proof, and that energy becomes irresistible. Think of it as planting a seed. The seed does not wonder whether it will grow. It already contains the tree within it. The moment you plant it in the soil, its destiny is secure. In the same way, the moment you assume the state of being desired, the outcome is sealed. You don't need to obsess over when the person will text, when they will call, or when they will show affection. You already hold the end within yourself. From that end, life arranges the bridge or incidents to bring it into manifestation. It may be a chance encounter, a sudden confession, a surprising turn of events. But the how is never your concern. Your only task is to live now as though the desire were already fulfilled. This does not mean pretending in a shallow way, nor does it mean forcing affirmations with gritted teeth. It means allowing yourself to sink deeply into the feeling of certainty. Imagine how you would feel if it were already done. Would there be anxiety, or would there be peace? Would there be chasing, or would there be calm assurance? The feeling is the secret doorway. By living in that inner satisfaction, you radiate an energy that commands devotion without ever needing to demand it. The person you desire begins to sense your certainty, and that certainty awakens their own. They respond to the energy of one who knows, not to the desperation of one who doubts. When you hold the state of desire fulfilled, reality bends around you. Circumstances shift, people change, events rearrange themselves, because consciousness is the only reality. You are not waiting for love to come. You are allowing love to unfold from the state of already having it. What you dare to assume, you give permission to exist. What you refuse to let go of within must harden into fact without. And when you remain faithful to this unseen reality, the world has no choice but to conform to the truth you have already claimed within yourself. Detachment creates magnetism, because the very energy of not needing communicates abundance, while the energy of clinging communicates lack. Every human interaction is an exchange of energy, whether words are spoken or not. When someone feels you pulling, grasping, or trying to secure their attention, there is an instinctive reaction to move away. This is not because they dislike you, but because clinging energy signals insecurity, and insecurity subconsciously tells the other person that something is missing. On the other hand, when you stand in the quiet assurance of detachment, when you no longer seek to grasp or demand, your presence radiates fullness, and fullness is magnetic. People are drawn to those who do not chase, because detachment whispers the unspoken truth. I already have. The paradox is powerful. When you stop needing someone to validate you, they feel compelled to validate you more. When you stop checking the phone, stop anxiously waiting for the message, stop rehearsing what you will say to convince them, you open the energetic space where they can come forward freely. The person who is detached has already made peace with the outcome. They are no longer projecting lack, so they no longer create resistance. This detachment is not indifference, it is inner security. You know your worth, and because you know it, you don't need to beg for love. And the one who doesn't beg becomes the one others want to give to. Think of a flame. When you place your hand too close, the flame retreats from lack of air. But when you step back and give it space, it grows stronger, brighter and more irresistible. Human relationships work the same way. Space, calm, and detachment allow love to breathe. Clinging suffocates it. Detachment, by contrast, draws it in. This is why you notice that the moment you lose interest or stop caring, others suddenly want your attention. It isn't random. It's a reflection of the energetic shift. The one who doesn't need becomes the one who holds the power. At its core, detachment is faith in the unseen. It says, I don't need to force because it is already mine. And because consciousness creates reality, that assumption commands the outer world to rearrange itself. When you cling, you affirm separation. You are silently declaring, I don't yet have it. When you detach, you affirm unity. You are silently declaring, it is already done. That declaration resonates outward, and the person you desire begins to feel an inexplicable pull toward you. They sense the calmness, the self-assured presence, and it awakens in them a desire to move closer. Detachment also frees you from self-sabotage. When you cling, you often act in ways that contradict your desire. Over-texting, over-explaining, over-seeking reassurance. These actions born of fear reinforce the very outcome you wish to avoid. But when you detach, your actions naturally align with confidence. You speak with ease, you carry yourself with grace. You no longer chase because you are already living as the one who is chosen. This behavior is not forced, it flows naturally from the state of detachment. And this is what makes you magnetic. Your presence becomes effortless, and effortlessness is irresistible. True detachment is not running away from desire, it is embodying the end of desire. You already claim the state of being loved, so you no longer need to demand it. Your energy becomes soft yet powerful, calm yet commanding. Others sense this shift. They find themselves drawn to you without knowing why, because they are responding to the unspoken truth that you no longer need their devotion. You already own it within. In that space of non-attachment, love is free to flow toward you, and devotion rises naturally without effort. Living in the end is the art of stepping beyond time and stepping into certainty. It is the ability to shift from questioning to knowing, from hoping to having, from longing to fulfillment. When you live in the end, you no longer stand outside your desire, peering at it as though it were far away. Instead, you walk right into the state where it already exists. You claim it as present, real, and complete. The question of when disappears because in the end there is no waiting, there is only being. This shift is not about passively wishing. It is about boldly assuming that the desire has already unfolded. The outer world may not yet reflect it, but the inner reality is already secure. And because consciousness is the root of all creation, the outer world must eventually catch up. When someone asks when, they are revealing that they do not yet believe it is done. They are measuring time, tracking signs, searching for proof. But living in the end bypasses all of that. It is resting in the certainty that what you want is already yours. This rest is not laziness, it is the calmness of faith. It is the stillness that knows the unseen is more real than what the eyes currently show. When you live in the end of being adored, of being chosen, of being fully loved, your mind ceases its restless questioning. Instead of anxiously wondering if devotion will ever arrive, you move through life as though it already surrounds you. And that assumption quietly instructs the outer world to rearrange itself. Consider the way an actor plays a role. They do not stand on stage wondering if they are convincing. They simply step into the character, wear the costume, speak the lines, and embody the part. Soon, the audience cannot distinguish between actor and role. They see only the character. Living in the end is the same. You do not dabble in the state of being loved. You wear it as your identity. You walk with the confidence of someone who is adored. You speak with the assurance of someone who is chosen. You breathe as though it could never be otherwise. And the world, like the audience, accepts the performance as reality and responds accordingly. This is why imagination is central. When you create inner scenes where your desire is fulfilled, you are not daydreaming idly. You are rehearsing the end until it feels natural. You might imagine holding their hand, receiving their words of love, or simply basking in the quiet certainty that you are cherished. As you persist in these imaginal acts, the feeling becomes familiar, and familiarity signals truth. Once your inner world accepts it as real, the outer world has no choice but to conform. Living in the end is not about forcing yourself to believe. It is about returning again and again to the state until it feels like home. The beauty of living in the end is that it dissolves desperation. You no longer cling to timelines because you already hold the outcome. You no longer search for signs because you already live in the proof. You no longer demand reassurance because the end is already secure within you. This certainty radiates outward. People feel it when they are around you. They sense your calmness, your lack of neediness, your quiet knowing, and it draws them closer. Devotion unfolds naturally not because you chased it, but because you became the version of yourself who already has it. Living in the end is stepping beyond appearances. It is refusing to let temporary conditions dictate your state of being. It is choosing to anchor yourself in the unseen reality rather than the visible delay. And as you persist in this unseen certainty, the bridge of events forms. Unexpected encounters, sudden changes, and effortless movements unfold, all leading you to the outer confirmation of what you already claimed within. Imagination commands reality because every outer experience is nothing more than a projection of inner conviction. The stage of life does not create its own script, it only enacts the words, images, and feelings rehearsed within consciousness. What you hold in imagination with persistence and emotional weight becomes the template the outer world must follow. This is not wishful thinking, but a fundamental principle of creation. The unseen is always the cause, and the seen is always the effect. When you understand this, you stop trying to manipulate circumstances and instead direct your focus inward, where the real power resides. Most people use imagination unconsciously. They replay fears, dwell on rejection, and script conversations in their heads that never go well. Then they wonder why life seems to echo back disappointment. But the truth is that the mind is always rehearsing, and the universe is always performing. If the rehearsal is one of lack, then lack is the scene played out. If the rehearsal is one of being unworthy, then rejection is the outcome. But when you deliberately command imagination to create scenes of fulfillment, devotion, and love, you change the entire performance. You feed the stage of life with a new script, and those around you, knowingly or not, act in accordance with it. The key lies in the feeling. Mere words or images without emotion are hollow. They do not carry the creative power needed to impress the subconscious. But when you enter the imaginal scene with genuine feeling, when you sense the warmth of their touch, the joy of their smile, the comfort of their devotion, the subconscious accepts it as real. To the inner mind, there is no distinction between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. Once it accepts the imaginal act as truth, it sets into motion the outer chain of events that make it fact. Think of imagination as the rehearsal room of the soul. Before a play ever reaches the stage, actors gather in rehearsal spaces, practicing their lines, their movements, their interactions. By the time the curtain rises, the performance flows naturally because it has already been lived inwardly. In the same way, when you rehearse scenes of being loved and chosen in imagination, you are preparing the performance of reality. The outer world only reflects what has already been scripted within. Nothing comes to you by chance. Everything is drawn by the magnet of your inner assumption. This is why it is said that you cannot persist in imagining something without it becoming fact. The law does not fail, but many fail to persist. They rehearse once or twice and then abandon the scene when outer appearances do not immediately change. But the mirror of reality always has a delay. It takes time for the unseen rehearsal to reach the stage. If you stop rehearsing midway, the play cannot be completed. But if you persist, if you continue to dwell in the inner conviction with feeling, the world is compelled to act it out. Imagination is not only creative, it is commanding. It does not ask politely for reality to adjust, it orders it. The outer world is powerless to resist the inner authority of assumption. People, circumstances, and even coincidences bend themselves to align with the script you provide. What you rehearse in silence becomes what others say out loud. What you feel in solitude becomes how they act in public. They may believe it is their own decision, but they are only fulfilling the role your imagination has written for them. To live deliberately, then, is to take control of this rehearsal. Instead of letting fear, doubt, and worry write the lines, you choose consciously. You step into the scene of already being adored, you feel the certainty of their devotion, you live the end result inwardly until it feels natural. And when it feels natural, the performance must follow. Silence is power, because it communicates certainty in a way that words never can. When you are convinced of something inwardly, you do not feel the need to argue, persuade, or prove. The very act of chasing or over-explaining reveals doubt, and doubt repels. But when you rest in quiet conviction, when you know without needing to announce it, your presence speaks more loudly than any explanation could. People feel the weight of your certainty. They sense the calm confidence that radiates from you, and this draws them in far more effectively than begging or pleading ever could. Chasing is the energy of lack. It says, I do not yet have, so I must pursue. Over-explaining is the energy of insecurity. It says, I am not sure of my worth, so I must justify it. Both reveal a state of not having, and because life mirrors consciousness, that state of not having continues to reproduce itself. Silence, however, is the language of possession. When you already own something in consciousness, you do not need to announce it, and that unspoken ownership is magnetic. The world bends to the one who knows, not to the one who pleads. Think of the way a leader commands a room. It is rarely through endless talking or convincing arguments. It is through presence, through stillness, through the weight of their inner certainty. People look to them not because they are shouting the loudest, but because their silence carries authority. In relationships and in manifestation, the same principle applies. When you are silent, not in indifference but in assurance, others feel it. They feel that you are not desperate for their approval. They feel that you are not begging for their attention. And this makes them want to move closer, because human nature is drawn to strength. Quiet conviction is powerful because it originates from the unseen. Words can lie, tone can deceive, actions can be manipulated. But the energy of someone who truly knows cannot be faked. It radiates from their posture, their eyes, their calmness. That energy is communicated without a sound, and it impresses itself on the minds of others. They begin to treat you according to the truth you silently hold. If you silently carry the conviction that you are loved, chosen, and adored, people will unconsciously align with that belief. They will play their part in confirming your silent certainty. This is why the practice of silence is so crucial. It is not the silence of apathy, but the silence of faith. You do not chase because you already have. You do not over-explain because your worth is unquestionable. You do not plead because the outcome is already secure. In this silence, you withdraw from the noise of doubt and the chatter of insecurity. You step into the stillness of knowing, and from that stillness, power flows effortlessly. Even in the imaginal realm, silence has strength. Instead of overcomplicating scenes with desperate affirmations, you simply dwell in the feeling of already being fulfilled. No need to repeat endlessly. One silent, vivid act of imagination carries more weight than 1,000 frantic affirmations. It is the depth of feeling, not the volume of repetition, that moves reality. Silence focuses the energy inward, where creation truly happens. When you master silence, you master attraction. You no longer drain your energy by trying to convince or pursue. Instead, you conserve it, and in conserving it, you radiate it. That radiation is felt by others. They sense your calm, your assurance, your quiet authority, and it awakens devotion in them. Silence is the unspoken command that says, I already am. And when you hold that command inwardly, the outer world has no choice but to obey. Faith in the invisible is the cornerstone of creation, because everything you see around you once existed only in the unseen. The visible world is nothing more than crystallized imagination, hardened thoughts, and sustained assumptions. To live by appearances alone is to be forever deceived, because appearances are always the past. They are delayed reflections of what was once believed within. But to live by faith in the invisible is to take command of creation itself, because you are no longer reacting to what is already formed. You are shaping what must come next. Faith is the refusal to be moved by temporary conditions and the unwavering trust in the unseen reality you have already assumed. When you hold faith in the invisible, you do not ask when or how. You rest in the certainty that it is already unfolding. Just as a seed planted in soil cannot be seen once buried, yet you know it is growing, so too does your unseen assumption begin to take form beneath the surface of life. The impatient gardener digs up the soil again and again, doubting the process, and in doing so destroys the growth. But the one who trusts in the invisible continues to water, continues to wait, continues to walk as though the harvest is inevitable. Faith works the same way. You may not see the proof immediately, but the unseen is already alive, already working, already arranging the outer world to catch up with your inner conviction. Trusting the invisible requires discipline, because the senses scream for evidence. They say, look, nothing has changed. Look, there is no sign. Look, they are still distant. But the senses only report the past. Faith listens to the deeper truth. What I have claimed inwardly is already mine. Faith answers the senses by saying, I do not live by what is, I live by what must be. And because the outer world is powerless against the authority of assumption, it bends itself to align with the unseen state you persist in. The beauty of faith is that it creates magnetism. When you know within yourself that devotion, love, and recognition are already yours, you stop reaching for them. You stop chasing. You stop doubting. You carry yourself with the calm assurance of someone who already possesses what others are still striving for. That energy is magnetic. People sense it and are drawn to it without understanding why. The outer world begins to chase to match the inner certainty you have held in silence. Faith in the invisible also frees you from the need to manipulate or force. You do not have to beg for love, demand devotion, or prove your worth. Those actions come from fear, and fear is the opposite of faith. Faith says, "It is already mine, so I can rest." And in that rest, circumstances rearrange themselves. Conversations take place you did not plan, opportunities arise you could not predict, and people move in ways you could not control. What looks like coincidence is only the world catching up with the script already written in the unseen. This is why imagination and faith work hand in hand. Imagination provides the scene, the inner experience of already being fulfilled. Faith holds to that unseen experience, regardless of appearances, until the outer matches it. Without imagination, faith has nothing to hold. Without faith, imagination is abandoned too quickly. But when they unite, creation is inevitable. To trust the unseen state is to live as though the outcome is secure, even when there is no evidence. It is to rest in the truth that what you have claimed within will be clothed in flesh and blood. The outer world cannot resist it. It has no choice but to chase after the unseen conviction until it manifests as fact. So, the next time you find yourself tempted to chase, remember this: the universe responds not to your desperation, but to your assumption. Live as if their devotion is already yours. Rest in that unseen truth, and watch as detachment transforms into the most magnetic force of all. The power that makes them come to you without effort.